Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining with us. I have Padmanand Warrior, technology executive and startup advisor on the show with me today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Glad you're here. All right, talk to us about your investment philosophy.
Sure. So fundamentally, whether it's investment or just anything that I do, it comes down to three Ps. And there might be different Ps than what your audience might be aware of. The first P I think about is the people. You know, the investments that I've done, it's cliched, but it always comes down to what the founding team is, what their passion is. Are they going to stick it through the hard times? All of that. So people super important to me. The next one, which is related to that, is the passion. Are they going to be committed to building a company? Is this something that they might even think of for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? You know, those are hard questions that need to be asked. And the last piece is problem. Is it a meaningful enough problem that's worth solving? You know, is it around sustainability, healthcare? Those are some of the investments that I've made, as well as what I'm looking forward to.
Okay. What about startups? Let me drill down on that. You've got crawls, stalls, and falls. How do you avoid them?
Yeah. So some of the things around, well, we'll come back to falls, but in the stall period, the first thing is to just understand what the fundamental problem you're trying to solve, and are you making progress day by day, hour by hour to that? And if you are not tracking and you just, for example, 3 weeks into your idea launch, you're still trying to figure out who your audience is, what are the problems, you probably haven't spent enough time thinking through your idea. And if you don't solve that early, that's just going to get worse. Then the crawling period, you know, it's like that song, you know, I can't get out of second gear sort of thing. You know, you just feel you're stuck. And so, again, things to think about there would be, where are you going to get all the help to accelerate? As a founder, you can't do everything yourself. I mean, that's obvious. So being smart about what you're going to do for yourself and how you're going to leverage your team is another area to avoid this crawling phase. And then stalls, or rather the fall period, is about how do you think through, even in the very beginning, what your exit strategy is. And your exit strategy might involve just, unfortunately, closing everything down. So that means even in the beginning, you got to think about how are you going to set up your organizational structure, your cap table, the agreements that you have in place, all of that. So when you have to either go for Series A or unwind, both of those requires a lot of investment in setting up the right agreements and finding the right people to join you. So those are just a few quick nuggets off the top of my head.
Those are good. Now, founder fails. What are the common mistakes?
Well, I think the first thing is falling in love with your idea. It's common, you know, it's your baby, you've thought through it, and you think, of course, everybody is like me, and of course they're going to like what I have to say. So the biggest fail is just having that sort of blinder on, and the best way to do that is just get out of the building. Go talk to, 10 other people, find out what they're thinking, and just pitch it to them and get their feedback. Another area for founder fail is what I just alluded to earlier, which is feeling like you got to do everything yourself. There is a reason why you need a team, and you need to continue to grow the team. Make sure you have complementary people on the team. But all of that comes down to making sure you are smart about how you use your time. There is a famous saying about too busy to scale. If you're trying to build, let's say, a $5 million company, perhaps you're so much down in the weeds, you're not thinking about scaling up to a $200 million company. So again, leveraging those kind of resources and mentors and employees and investors and all of that, super critical. So those are, again, a couple of top-of-mind thoughts. There's probably a few we can get into the rest of the conversation.
Well, what makes a great product manager, and how does the role differ in a startup?
Yeah. The advice I would give is sort of like threefold, if I boil it down to 3 H's. Be honest, be humble, be hungry. The honest part is being intellectually honest. And it's beyond just saying the truth. Of course, we expect people to speak the truth and all of that. But intellectually honest is really being able to look at the problem, look at it from different angles, make sure you've heard everybody, and then come up with your own point of view of why you think this may be different than what everybody is saying. So it takes courage to speak that intellectually and honestly, and that's the key part of a good product manager, or even a great one. The second part is being humble. Again, it goes back to what I just said about the founder, is being so much in love with your idea. Product managers can make the same problem. They feel like, oh, wow, this is my baby. This is my particular feature, and this is the most important feature. But being able to step back and take a look and say, well, in the grand scheme of things, this may be not that important, and we need to pivot a different direction. And the last piece about being hungry is just being curious. Go tinker. The best product managers are those that are able to experiment with their product. They are also experimenting with their competitors. And so they know this stuff backwards and forwards. And so they are immediately able to answer any questions about why is this different and how the competition maybe sucks at what they do. You might not come out as direct and say that, but you need to have a clear point of view of why you're different and where you're going.
Let's talk about HEART, that heart-centric approach. Explain to our audience what that is, that acronym.
Yeah. So it's something that I've talked about in my one of the Forbes article that I wrote. It's basically HEART stands for, first of all, human-centric, right? We tend to go ahead and jump into technology first, especially in smart cities. There's a lot of these discussions about, wow, let's have sensors and blah, 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 and smart streetlights. But if you don't really think through the impact on the citizens, you're probably going to lose track of that human aspect. So the human-centric design is first. The second one is the entrepreneurial thinking that I just thought about, right? Is that you need to be able to think sort of with that scrappy startup idea, as well as especially if you're, and I'm talking with my experience with smart cities, if you're a bureaucrat, you might be thinking, oh, well, I got to do this, I got to do that. But it's different when you are in bringing that startup idea to the party. I'll come back to the A part. The R stands for replicability or repealability. You need to come back to something that, once you've solved a problem, you need to be able to repeat it and scale it multiple times. And then the T is, of course, the technology. So at the center of all of this is what I talked about, where smart meets heart, which is what is the sort of applicability, right? You need to think through, is this going to be really meaningful and impactful to the problem you're solving? So that's an overall philosophy that I've applied not only in my smart city thinking, but also I've evolved in my investments.
Got it. How do you spot your favorite type of investment?
It comes back to what I said at the beginning. It's, are people and the passion and the problem, are they coming together? And is it fundamentally something that is truly game-changing? So one of my investments is Heal, right, that I've talked about publicly in my writings as well.
They've been on our show.
Yeah, they're getting on the show. That's fantastic. They're rebooting the $4 trillion healthcare industry fundamentally by saying, one doctor at a time making a house call. And this brings it home to me because when that doctor comes home, that doctor is fully in the environment of that patient that they're seeing. They understand what else is going on. So they're just not going to go and prescribe something. There's lots of stats now that even telemedicine, doesn't foresee all of the things that, because you're just looking through the lens of the camera, not looking in the live environment. And so there's some mistakes that can happen there. So Heal is something I'm super excited about where they are. They've got some great traction. They're getting some great advisors, and they're in the hunt for the next round. So I wish them well, and I really think what they're doing is pretty significant in reducing healthcare costs, which Lord knows we all need that. The other one is aggressively organic. Jonathan Partlow, they're working on, where you can grow vegetables in your own home, 24/7, 365. Somebody said it's like having a farmer's market in your own home. And it's true because, all you need to supply is love, light, and fresh air. The company supplies the light, you supply the love, and nature supplies the air. And now you can grow, spinach and tomatoes and all of this, throughout the year. You're not dependent on the outside world. And it really is about making the problem of food sustainability something really significant for generations to come. So those are just a couple of examples of startups that I'm working with and how it ties to my philosophy. And then last but not the least is kind of a stealth startup. It is a stealth startup that is trying to address the problem of loneliness for seniors. I'm super excited about this because this is, again, something that impacts all of us. People have social isolation, anxiety, boredom. How do you address that? And it just gets amplified, as you get older, and maybe mobility impaired, all of those. So I'm excited about working with all of these startups because I think they're all making significant impact.
Tell me about your Heart Hub vision for Texas and beyond.
Yeah. Well, I think this is something, it's a passion of mine. It's a long journey. I'm working with several like-minded individuals here in Austin and across the state. And the idea is to have, these centers of excellence. And this is specific to smart cities. If you have a smart city, well, fundamentally, you need to have smart people to run it. And smart people doesn't just mean the IQ, but also the EQ. It gets back to that heart philosophy I talked about, right? So I envision the need for having people that have the sort of EQ plus IQ together, fused together in one environment, both digitally as well as physically, where they can connect not only within their local community, but across the state as well as across the world. And so, it's going to be a center of education, a center of excellence and experimentation, and finally being able to generate commerce, because commerce has got to be the lifeblood that gets all of this going, right? So how do you have a center of collaboration and commerce as well? So that's, in brief, what I think about it, and I'm continuing to talk to many thought leaders. Chelsea Collier is one who's a well-known individual here in Austin and beyond. She has a great blog called Diddy City that I think she's doing some terrific work. So I'm excited to be working with people like her.
I'd like to meet some of these people you were talking about, but we can talk about that offline. Pad, thanks for being a guest on today's show.
Thank you.
My pleasure. You've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Thank you for joining with us. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.